Yeah, and I certainly don't take disqualifying myself lightly. The court has an obligation to sit. All right, we're going to go on the record now in People versus Lawrence Baumgart, file number 255453, and Raymond Matthey, file number 255454. I requested this hearing for counsel today just to make a disclosure. It's an odd situation. It's one I've never encountered in 13 years on the bench. And it's interesting throughout the case, your clients have been in court with me a number of times prior to trial and then of course during trial. And throughout those times, I always felt like both your clients looked familiar to me somehow, but I could not place how they were familiar to me. And so we went through the trial and it was something that was stuck in my head, and I more or less had just dismissed it as they had familiar looking faces, or maybe I had encountered them in the community, through a community event or something somehow at some point. And then the night after trial, I was laying there and I wasn't even thinking about this case, but then it popped into my head and I recognized where I recognized your clients from. And Mr. Baumgart had purchased a vehicle from me. I had listed my old truck on Facebook Marketplace because it wasn't running, so I was just looking for someone who wanted to get it for scrap. I think Mr. Baumgart engages in that kind of business. So I finally, something clicked in my brain, and it hit me that's where I knew. And Mr. Baumgart came to my home to purchase a truck, and he loaded it up on a flatbed, and Mr. Matthey was the one who helped him. And I had a very pleasant hour-long probably conversation with the two of them. And then I had to get some more additional documentation to Mr. Baumgart for the title for the truck. And I had his name and address written down in my records. So after it dawned on me, I went and just double checked my records to make sure that that's who it was, and that it was Mr. Baumgart. So I wanted to disclose that prior contact and prior relationship, business relationship, with all counsel. I didn't realize it until after the trial, so I don't know that it would be a basis for disqualification or anything that happened leading up to the point that I recognized both of those individuals. But I do think that I am going to disqualify myself from the sentencing hearing because following the conviction and hearing the evidence that I heard, of course, not having a PSI yet or anything, I had already formed some thoughts about what I thought an appropriate sentence might be. And then having realized how I knew both of these gentlemen and having had a very positive business dealing with them and positive personal experience in the short period of time that I did talk to them. And again, I should mention that I think I sold this truck to them maybe 2 springs ago. It's been several years.
That was my question, is the timing.
Yeah, it's been several years. And again, it was maybe an hour's interaction. So frankly, I'm surprised I even did figure out where I knew them from because it had been so brief. But even in the amount of time I had developed a very positive attitude of both of them through the course of my interactions outside of court. And in my view, that prior personal experience with them is going to affect how I might sentence them. And so I don't think it's appropriate for me to preside over a sentencing hearing where I'm going to be potentially taking into account personal experience and personal knowledge that I have of the individuals that I'm sentencing. So the purpose for this hearing today is twofold. Again, to disclose that prior contact to everyone, and when I realized that there was something to disclose, the nature of those contacts, and then the fact that I'm going to disqualify for sentencing. All of that being said, Mr. White, is there any record that you want to make here today?
No, I just wish if you had a positive impact, you felt you could sentence them, but I believe your recusal is probably appropriate, and I'm not going to object to it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dick.
Nothing from me, Your Honor.
Yeah, and I certainly don't take disqualifying myself lightly. The court has an obligation to sit unless there is a valid reason. If it was, a casual community contact, maybe I wouldn't. But yeah, in this case, I think it's more appropriate. So I'm going to be entering that order so counsel can look for that, and then whatever judge is assigned will be scheduling and presiding over the sentencing. Any further questions about that can be directed to my office, and Jennifer can help with that. But otherwise, that's all I have for the record. Thank you, counsel, and everyone's free to disconnect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
In this case, the judge stepped aside from sentencing because Michigan law requires judges to remain not only impartial, but also free from any appearance of bias. Under the Michigan Code of Judicial Conduct, specifically Rule 2.11, a judge must disqualify himself whenever his impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Here, the judge decided to step aside because of a prior personal business contact with the defendants. Even though it happened years ago and had nothing to do with this case, he believed it could create the appearance that sentencing might be influenced by personal experience instead of only the evidence and the law. Sentencing involves broad judicial discretion, and Michigan due process principles require that discretion to be exercised by a judge with no personal connection to the parties. To protect the integrity of the proceedings and the defendant's right to a fair and neutral decision-maker, the judge disclosed the issue on the record and formally recused himself, transferring sentencing to a different judge with no prior involvement. Thanks for watching, and if content like this is your taste, don't forget to like and subscribe.